I'm going to go ahead and start it up. Here we go, guys. Apostolic Constitutions, Book 1. And the first question is, the Apostolic Constitutions are generally written to whom? The Jews, the Corinthians, the Gentiles, or the apostates? Who are the Apostolic Constitutions generally written to? And it is the Gentiles. Who said the Corinthians? Two people wrote. It's not the Corinthians, guys. It's to the Gentiles. And the next question. In Book 1, the church is referred to as God's what? Boat, vineyard, throne, or footstool? What is the church referred to as? That is right. It is God's vineyard or his plantation. Yep. Wow. And the next question. True or false? Modesty is mostly important for women and not really an issue for men. Well, that only took 0.8 seconds for everybody to click. All right, next question. What is the consequence for one who covets his neighbor's wife but does not act on it? He must confess to the husband. He is already considered an adulterer in his heart. He is only guilty if the wife reciprocates, or he is innocent unless he commits the act. And everybody pretty much got it. He is already considered an adulterer in his heart. There are 46 questions. Can you believe that? I'm going to have to speed up here.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
Is this Kavon's day?
It might be. Well, they're all kind of getting, settled, so give them some time. Next question. And it's a double. Which commandment does Christ expand upon in the gospel? You shall not covet, you shall not steal, honor your father and mother, or you shall not commit adultery. Which of these does Jesus expand upon in the gospel? Meaning, which one does he elaborate upon? Giving the true meaning. And it is, you shall not commit adultery. He explains that you ought not to even lust in your heart. Alrighty. Next question. How should one respond to being cursed? By reporting it to religious authorities, with silence and distance, by confronting the person in public, or by blessing the one who cursed you? Alright. They only had to read it, and everybody knew that one. Put it into practice, guys. Don't just read it. Do it. Preston, you want to join in, or it's okay if you're not able to? It's 46 questions. You've got time to catch up.
Yeah, I'll join.
All right, let's wait for him a little bit.
We're going to wait just a minute, guys. Who else joined? Let me know when you're ready.
I'm in.
Here we go. Next
Wait,
question.
you already started?
Oh, you want us to start over for you?
No.
All right, what Old Testament book is quoted to advise against personal revenge? Is it the Proverbs, Psalms, Isaiah, or Ecclesiastes? Which Old Testament book is quoted to advise against personal revenge? It is Proverbs. Almost everybody got it. Big shakeups, as usual. Nice job, Kevon. Next question. What imagery is used to illustrate God's impartial goodness? Is it the growing of grain, the sun and the rain, a banquet table, or the cleansing of a leper? What imagery is used to illustrate God's impartial goodness? And it is the sun and the rain. Apostolic Constitutions is non-stop scripture quotes. It's almost every other sentence. It's a wonderful book. Next question. True or
Perfect for a
false?
Protestant.
Yes, they need that book. If you adorn yourself and someone lusts after you, it's okay as long as you don't commit adultery or fornication. Is that true or is it false? These are the big questions.
This question comes up like 5 times.
If one person gets this wrong, you're in big trouble. Did everybody get a chance to read Book 1 of Apostolic Constitutions?
We've only gone off after this issue like about 10 times.
There is no excuse. All right, they all got it. Of course, that is false. Next question. How should a husband treat his wife? Compassionately and honorably, as his equal in authority and rulership, like one of his household servants, or with distance to avoid temptation? Choose the right answer.
Possess your vessel.
Just click it. All right, whoever clicked the yellow one, we're going to talk after this. But yes, compassionately and honorably is the right answer. And the next question, true or false? Another double point. A wife should please her husband, but a husband is not responsible to please his wife. That wasn't too hard. Good job, everybody. That's false. And the next question. Give him a hard one. Why is it said that a man should cut his hair short and avoid curling or adorning it? Is it because it resembles pagan customs? Because it's a distraction during prayer? Because long hair is a sign of rebellion? Or because it may cause women to lust after him? Why should a man cut his hair short and avoid curling or adorning it? Everybody got it. This is the easy quiz, guys. Yes,
Pretty easy.
it causes women to lust. Even women can lust. And true or false, wearing a gold ring is encouraged as a symbol of blessing.
This
Aramis,
is a nice,
you're
simple, casual quiz.
yes, nice and simple, but it's almost like a 30-question quiz because of how fast we're going through it.
That's right.
Yes, everybody know wearing gold rings like that. At least the gold ring is not encouraged. There is one church father who talks about wearing a ring, and he says one ring, just as a symbol of the fact that you're married, so that people can see it clearly. But
Well, there's also multiple ones talk about wearing a signet ring.
yes, a signet ring, and that would be Clement of Alexandria. So even Clement, who most people regard to be very strict, totally uncompromising on any issue, yes, he would say that that is allowed. But again, guys, just the wearing of gold in general is a concession, and that is the only instance where any church father says it's allowed. It's wedding ring.
It's also allowed in some situations if you want to please your pagan husband.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't he say it's for the man, though?
I mean, for the man.
The wedding ring?
No. He tells the woman you can sometimes decorate yourself to please your pagan husband.
Right, he's talking about at home, though. Only at home. See, those things could be taken out of context so easily.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, when it says that Judith put on her festive clothes, her beautiful festive clothes, it specifies, it says, the ones that she used to wear for her husband on festival days. So she was wearing them at home. Anyway, next question. Double points? What specific kind of apparel is mentioned as inappropriate for men? Is it turbans, long tunics, clothing and shoes that are fancy, or gloves and shoes? Yeah, I was just telling Aramis, nobody is going to get this one wrong. You gotta make it a little harder, okay? You gotta up the ante here.
It's hard to extract things from book one.
Oh, I coulda. You gotta ask me for advice. I'll give you some good suggestions. You're making me want to make a Kahoot now.
Yes, you should make some.
It's too much pressure we're putting on Aramis. What Old Testament precept is cited in reference to male grooming practices? Is it, you shall not cut the corners of your field, you shall not make to yourselves curls and round razors, you shall not eat unclean animals, or you shall not wear mixed fabrics? Which of these is cited in reference to male grooming practices? And it is, you shall not make to yourselves curls and round razors. Now that was a trick question, Hermes. You were just messing with them now.
Oh.
They read the first words, clicked it quickly,
It's exactly what I did.
and then
I read, "You shall not cut the corners," and I didn't read field.
immediate regret washed over them. All right, next question. True or false? It's best to meditate on God's law in the day, but the nighttime is only for rest. Aramis has never asked questions this easy.
But see, if you get one wrong, you instantly get shot down. So it's different kind of pressure.
You gotta ask hard questions that test their remembrance, test their knowledge, see if they actually were reading this.
Luke, these are good doctrinal questions. Doctrine is easy. This had to be difficult.
All right.
This is just This is a basic book about Luke. Just don't make people lust after you. Don't wear fancy things. It's the same thing repeated over and over again.
Ask trickier questions.
Hey, we still got how many? 30 questions left?
They'll get trickier, I'm thinking. They've got to. Next question. True or false? Having someone else lust after you is just as bad as adultery. Finally, Aramis got you guys. He got 3 of you. No, it is not just as bad as committing adultery. But it is a sin.
Still bad.
It's a sin, but it is not on the level of actually committing adultery. If that were true, oh my goodness, I'd be guilty of actually committing adultery. Everybody probably that we're looking at were actual adulterers, and that's not the case, guys. It is a sin, though.
I knew it was false, but
All right, Aramis finally tripped some of you up.
See, that's the new tactic. It's like have 16 questions of really easy, and then boom.
You just came out of nowhere. All right, here we go, guys. Next question. Double points. All of these things should be avoided except what? Brushing your hair, getting a fade, getting a poof, getting a buzz cut. A poof. A poof is like when your hair is standing up. So which of these guys? Yes, getting a buzz cut. I want to make sure they know what a poof is. You know how many times I've talked to people about poofy hair and they say, "What is a poof?" Or spiffy. I'll say, "You're looking spiffy," or "I used to dress my hair and make it look spiffy." And they say, "What is spiffy?" These are words. Anyway, yeah, it is getting a buzz cut, guys. That is actually encouraged. Make your hair nice and short. That's the way to go. I just did that. Saved a lot of money. Next question. Double points. Which one of these books are not recommended to be read? Revelation, the Law, the Prophets, or the Psalms? Well, never mind. I guess they did all get that one. Most of these are really easy. Yeah, they did not encourage people to read Revelation, but I think we've spoken about that one frequently enough. And it's just because Revelation is very difficult, and there are other things to be prioritized. We don't want to encourage people to read something that causes many people to stumble. For instance, church fathers like Origen say the Jews did not encourage young men to read the Song of Solomon because it would be very easy for an immature young man to totally misinterpret that book. And I'd say the average 50 or 60-year-old Protestant is in the level of maturity as a little Jewish teenager, because they all misinterpret that book to be a book all about sexuality. And they're so foolish to think that. So yeah, guys, the books of the Bible were not always just handed out freely to read indiscriminately. Some, they encouraged you to wait until you were more mature to read it. True or false? You shouldn't try to anything spiritual when you wake up because your mind is still hazy. Well, this question's a little hazy too.
That's what happens when you
I think he means you shouldn't try to do anything spiritual, right?
Yes.
Yeah, doing spiritual things when you wake up is off limits. What is this? This is the kindergarten quiz. I'm sorry. All right, everybody got that one right. And it's not because I helped them, it's because it's not that hard. All right, next question, guys. What distinction does the author encourage the reader to make when reading the law? This is a good question. Between narrative and command, between the moral and ceremonial laws, between precepts from nature and secondary bonds added after idolatry, or between written law and oral tradition? What is the distinction you're encouraged to make when you're reading the Old Testament? Or specifically, the Law of Moses? What is it, guys? What are you looking out for? And yes, it is the distinction between the laws of nature and the secondary bonds or chains that were added as a result of the idolatry that the Jews were engaged in. That's why the book of Deuteronomy is called Deuteronomy. That means the second law. And that was added because of transgressions, as Paul says. It wasn't going to be there originally.
Luke, so there are some laws in, let's say, like Leviticus. I think it says not to wear double fabrics. Like right after it talks about like some other natural laws. Would that mean that you make the distinction between, okay, this is a natural law, so it still applies, and then there is this law about fabrics that
Well, could I clarify
just
that? The
what?
fabrics thing is actually, it's very specifically about wool and linen. But people misunderstand that as like, oh, any mixed fabrics, but that's not. I don't think that's.
Well, yeah,
that's
I mean,
actually saying.
I haven't read the verse in a while, so I can't really be specific on it. Anyways, I forgot. But I mean, thanks for making the clarification. But I'm just trying to. I'm just
I
wondering
know
about.
exactly what your question is, Brian. Brian, I used to have
Yeah.
the same question when I would read the church fathers say, oh, there's a distinction between the natural and the second law, the Deuteronomy. I used to think, well, how in the world am I supposed to see the distinction? Because it's almost like they're just as mixed up as they can be. And I felt like even Paul makes it seem like it's so obvious. Am I just stupid? And I realized what the answer was, guys. I am stupid. It's actually really obvious. God jumbled it up on purpose in order to make it so that you open your eyes. Only person with their eyes open can see the distinction. But take something like the mixing of a specific kind of fabric with another kind of fabric, compared to don't cut off your beard or make cut marks in your body. Well, I can tell which of those is a law of nature and which of those is a law added because of their unbelief. I can tell a clear difference between the two. They are mixed up, guys. They're mixed up on purpose because of the stubbornness of the Jews. But if a spiritual person reads the law, they can tell the difference between what's natural and what was added because of their transgressions.
It's good to know these things as well because maybe like an atheist or some person who hates God would try to point out, like if you try to point out, oh, the law says that it's an abomination for a man to sleep with a man, they might be like, well, it also says you can't mix wool and whatever other fabric. So
Yes. Well, I realized
how
it, guys.
yeah.
Think about it, Brian. I mean, I once spoke to my aunt, and I was talking to her about God's laws and how we have to obey God's laws, and she was saying, well, we're saved by grace, and all the Protestants today are taught, well, we're just saved by grace, and we break the law all the time. And then they'll bring up the laws of the fabrics. I've heard it so many times. And they say, we're saved by grace now. And then they'll point at you and they'll say, do you mix your fabrics? See, you need God's grace as much as everybody. You see how insane that is? But see, only a stubborn, ignorant, foolish person would say such a thing, not realizing that certain laws were given only to the Jews. Did God ever give Moses the law, or did God ever give Noah, I meant to say, the law not to eat certain animals? No, he told him he could eat any kind of animal. Abraham, guys, pay close attention in the Old Testament. He breaks the law. He actually breaks the Mosaic law. Of course, it didn't exist yet, so he's not really breaking any law. But I mean, it's very obvious in Abraham's diet, he is not following the law.
I see.
I would say, yeah, like eating pork, not eating pork, and like sodomy, right? Like one of those is clearly a natural, a much more of like a wide-spanning natural law, but the other is okay. This is for the stubbornness of the Jews.
Yes. Something
Even
like the foods is so obvious because you have Noah being told he can eat anything he wants.
yeah, like I think there are like subtle like there's symbolism with the pork. There's also like pigs are pretty dirty, and there is some little like the nuggets of like wisdom with like the health of different foods, but that's like any one food in itself, eating it is not a sin, right? That's like a health thing, but the greater reason is God doing this for the sake of their obedience, right, and making them distinct from other nations. Even the wool linen thing, there's some interesting stuff about that, of like the signature frequency of different fabrics, and wool and linen are really high, but then when they're mixed together they cancel each other out. There's been studies on that, but I
Well,
digress.
things like the Sabbath that was brought up the other day, you know that the
Yes.
people before Moses were not observing any kind of law that said if you gather sticks you're to be executed. That was only with Moses. Everybody knew that. And they knew that circumcision itself couldn't be righteousness because nobody before Abraham was circumcised. He was the first to do it. Don't listen to any crazy scholars who say that. All the fathers attest that Abraham was the first to receive the law of circumcision. But many before him were righteous and they were never circumcised. So you have to understand what things are laws of nature and what things are laws for the Jews and
Real
ceremonies.
quick,
And the ceremonies are not evil, guys. Nobody says that these things are evil. It's just that they are not laws of nature. And that is something we're encouraged to make a distinction between when we're reading the Old Testament and to look for the symbolic meaning of the law and not just the letter.
last thing I'll say, um, with the point I was just getting at as well is that it's good that all of us learn this because, like you brought up with that, I forgot who you mentioned, like your grandma or something. I forgot. Bringing up those laws when you try talking about certain, maybe even natural laws, like when it talks about maybe the beard or um, whatever other natural command that it gives, people will just try to mix the two up. But course, I think if we know this and we can explain to people like how they can perhaps distinguish between the laws and not confuse them and end up just throwing everything out. Because isn't a Protestant just someone who just wants to get rid of everything? They want to get rid of everything, but as soon as maybe the homosexuality thing comes up, they'll point to the law. Oh, look, God's law says not to, men don't sleep. It's an abomination for a man to sleep with a man. But then for the rest, they'll just ignore everything. It's only when it's convenient they'll point to certain passages. But then, yeah, you get my point, probably.
Brian, you may have heard this before or maybe not, but in my experience when speaking to Protestants, they've been taught a doctrine that says the only things you have to obey from the Old Testament are the things that were repeated by either Christ or the apostles in the New Testament. Otherwise, everything is to be disregarded. Have you ever heard that before?
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like I probably thought that probably up like recently a little bit. Of course, I've still acknowledged the fact that the Old Testament says things that aren't repeated in the New Testament that still apply. But I feel like somewhat I've thought about that. But I mean, if that's wrong, that's wrong. But
It's
yeah,
wrong. It's very wrong. I mean, first of all, that goes against laws of nature. What, just something is allowed unless God explicitly forbids it? I mean, how does that bode for all the people before the written law was given? They're just allowed to do things that aren't explicitly forbidden in a writing? That's silly. But then you have a big problem because the New Testament does not forbid all of the clearly wicked things in the Old Testament. Where is abortion or bestiality forbidden in the New Testament? Where's that explicitly forbidden?
yeah, I realize that uh, those things aren't repeated, but of course, you just know. Like, I feel like if someone reads those verses, you obviously know those things still apply. It's
Yes.
just natural to know that those laws still apply, even though they aren't repeated in the New Testament.
Yep.
So,
Exactly. All right, guys, we continue. Thanks for listening. Next question. David is on the top five now. True or false? It's good to visit the people living wickedly because it keeps you sober. That's false. No such thing is ever said. Next question. What practical warning is given regarding public bathing? Is it that you should only bathe during daylight hours, or avoid sharing water with non believers, or refrain from bathing entirely as a sign of humility, or use only baths designated for men to avoid temptation? Is this a law that's given to the men?
I mean, men are the default, Luke.
Is this a law that's given both to men and I know it's given to the women to only bathe with other women, but is it also told to the men to only bathe with men?
I think it does. I remember reading it. I read through
I see.
the 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 shorter or the earlier version of Apostolic Constitutions, and I remember reading that.
I see. Very nice. Well, that's good. Very consistent between the two sexes. Next question. What should one learn from reading the books of the kings? Is it military tactics and royal etiquette, or the genealogies of Israel, or how righteous kings prospered and wicked kings perished, or the customs of the surrounding nations? Apparently, you all knew this one. It is how righteous kings prospered and wicked kings perished. And the next question, true or false? There is a huge depth of wisdom in books outside of Scripture. Remember, this is Apostolic Constitutions quiz. It may seem like it's not, but this is something Apostolic Constitutions talks about. Most of you may have already fallen for the trick. 2 of you did. No, we would never say such a thing, guys, that there is a huge depth of wisdom in books outside of Scripture.
There's like scraps, morsels.
Yeah, there's bits of wisdom. Now, you're probably thinking of the fathers when some of you say true. But this is a quiz about Apostolic Constitutions. I don't think they would put your pastor's teachings in that same category. When they speak about books, they just say, avoid the books of the world, stick with the scriptures. And of course, stick with what your pastor is teaching you. We're in a unique situation, though, because we don't have a living pastor, so we just have writings of pastors.
Yeah, when the church fathers said don't read pagan books, they're not, you know, they're
Yeah,
not saying don't read books by.
Yeah, but you didn't specify pagan books in your question. You probably should have. I could see the trick question. I could see it. I'm sorry, Kavan. There you are in third place, right where you belong. All right, next question. You're going to do it, Kavan. You're going to get first. I know it. Don't give up. What is wisdom to be regarded as? A brother, a friend, a sister, or a wife? Kavan, I'm sorry. What is wisdom to be regarded as? And it is a sister. Say to wisdom, you are my sister.
Well, that got a lot of people.
That did seem to shake things up a little bit. Now, of course, to be married to wisdom sounds really good, but it's just not. It's just not written. It says, "Say to wisdom, you are my sister." However, I think you could marry her and say that. All right, everything's mixed up, Kavan. That's why I regretted what I said. I knew you were going to get back in first. Good job, everybody. Next question. What time of day is the foolish young man found wandering? Is it the dusk and in the darkness of night, or the Sabbath day, or morning and noon, or during temple hours? What time of day is the foolish young man found wandering? It is dusk and in the darkness of night. And the next question, true or false? Double points. The Ten Commandments were given after the Israelites made the golden calf. Might be good for some of you to brush up on Exodus. What? 3 people said true. I mean, guys, the second set of 10 commandments was given after the golden calf, but the original 10 commandments were given while Moses was up on the mountain, before the golden calf was made. The golden calf was made after 40 days of Moses being on the mountain, having already written the 10 commandments and written Genesis. All right, next question. What symbolic items does the woman use to entice the young man? Is it jewels and gold, tapestries, saffron and cinnamon, a golden cup and bread, or fine garments and frankincense? And it is
Never the stranger
tapestries,
answer.
saffron, and cinnamon. Now, is this actually in Apostolic Constitutions, or are you just going to Proverbs now?
This is Apostolic Constitutions.
It's in there.
I see. It's just quoting Proverbs left and right, isn't it?
I should be able to change my answers. This isn't a real test.
It's okay. What do you mean? Did you regret it right after you clicked it?
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, she does talk about that cinnamon. I remember that in Proverbs. Kevon, you didn't go down that far. You're okay. Look at you. You've got a chance. True or false? Double points. Men can't bathe with women, but women can bathe with men. I mean, that's like, what kind of a question is that? Next question. What metaphor is used to describe the danger of the harlot's words? Is it poisoned arrows, chains of iron, drops from a honeycomb, or whispering winds that lead to cliffs? You should have said sirens calls. Why didn't you do that? That was an obvious one. It is drops from a honeycomb. Another quote of Proverbs. Next question. What regret will the young man express later, if he gives in, that he wasn't stronger than the other men, or that he ignored his teacher's reproof, or that he didn't marry her, or that he did not study more scripture? And it is that he ignored his teacher's reproof. You've all been taught it. You all know better than to do that. Next question. Who is described as a silly bird? Harlots, rabbis, heretics, or seduced men? And it is seduced men. It says they're like a bird that walks right into a trap. You know, birds do that. You ever watched a video on YouTube of birds just walking into traps? And it's not just that the one bird does it. It's the weirdest thing, guys. A bird will walk into a trap, and then his friend bird will walk up and walk into the exact same trap and literally just watch his friend die and then do it again. And then the next bird standing right behind them will say, me next, and he'll die. It's crazy. So it's not just talking about one bird here. It's talking about the fact that you guys can see the calamity of other people who get involved with women and fornicate. And then you go and do the same thing. You know you shouldn't be doing it. Next question. When is the best time for women to bathe? Is it in the morning, in the middle of the day, after prayer, or the 10th hour? It is the 10th hour. That would be 4, just before the sun goes down. And the next question. Remember, guys, they count their hours from 6 a.m. So not requiring that you do it when it's literally nighttime and the sun is down, but just as the sun is going down, that's a good time to go to bathe if you need to. That was something practiced. Women typically didn't go out of the house unless the sun was going down, so that their modesty would be protected. Just like you see with Rebecca going to water the camels for Abraham's servant. It says the sun had gone down. All right, next question. Double points. What is the proper hierarchy of headship as outlined in 1 Corinthians 11:3? Is it that it is husband, then wife, then children, or Christ, church, husband and wife, or God, Christ, husband, wife, or God, wife, husband, Christ? Everybody got that
Well,
one?
I thought that would trick a lot of people.
Oh, come on, it's too easy. God, Christ, husband, wife. You made it so complicated, everybody had to read it carefully. You got to trick him. You got to make him feel overconfident. All right, guys, just 10 more. What specific consequence is mentioned for a woman who adorns herself to attract others, even without intent to sin? Is it that she is guilty of stealing glory from her husband, or that she may cause another to lust and thus will not escape punishment, or she may become more attractive than her husband, or that she will need to fast for her vanity? And it is. She may cause another to lust, and thus will not escape punishment. I'd say Aramis sometimes words it too obviously. You could tell he didn't write that himself. True or false? If God gives you beauty, it should be celebrated. Two people clicked true. But in reality, guys, beauty is a challenge. It's a trial. It's a test for you whether you're a man or a woman, but especially if you're a woman, because you just got to hide it now. That's going to be your responsibility now. And you're going to feel so tempted to want to show it off, but you can't show it off. Only to your husband. You got to restrain yourself. That's the challenge. Nothing but a trial. That is all beauty is. It does not benefit a woman at all to be beautiful, nor does it benefit a man. Next question. What metaphor is used in Proverbs 11:22 for a wicked woman with beauty? Is it that she is a jewel of gold, or her beauty is a jewel of gold in a swine's snout, or a thorn in the vineyard, or a crown of thorns, or a pearl hidden in a dung heap? What metaphor is used for a wicked woman who has beauty? And it is like a ring of gold and a swine's snout. But Apostolic Constitution says a jewel of gold. All right. Next question. What behavior is recommended for a woman walking in public? Is it that she should speak quietly to companions, or wear sandals and fine linen, or look downward and veil herself, or carry a scroll of the law? That one was too easy. And the next question, is it true or false? Ecclesiastes compares a wicked woman's hands to fetters and calls her worse than death. Fetters just mean chains, handcuffs. It is true. Next question. A virtuous wife is a something to her husband. A foundation, a castle, a crown, or a sapphire. I know this from experience. It is that she is a crown to her husband. Nice to see you, Raheem. Next question. She tastes that it is good to something. Her lamp goes not out all the whole night. So she tastes that it is good to feast, rest, speak, or labor. And it is to labor. She works very hard for her family. Next question, true or false? As long as you don't wear fancy clothes with the desire to attract others, it is acceptable to wear them.
Sink it.
Yeah, we've asked this question 10 different ways now. It has sunk in. What is the next step for a man who enters into the depths of evil? Is it merriment, scorn, gossip, or war? And it is scorn. Scorn of the good. Adrian is back. It is better to dwell in the corner of the housetop than with a contentious and an angry something. Is it dog, judge, debtor, or woman? It is a woman. They say this over and over in Proverbs. It's better to live on the corner of a roof than with a contentious and angry woman. Now, who knows what contentious means? Somebody volunteer. What does it mean to be contentious?
It's like disagreeable, always causing a problem, always kind of being at tension with you, always being contradicting you.
Yes. It comes from the word contending, which just means fighting or contradicting. Yes. We're told to contend earnestly for the faith. That just means if we hear anybody teaching a lie or anything, then we fight that and we teach the truth. And the next question, true or false? Once a person falls into sin, they are no longer a threat to others. It is false. And that concludes the quiz. That's the easiest quiz you guys have ever had. And there you are, Kavan. Third place. And David, amazing. Second place. Very impressive. But who was in first place? It was this man, Thaumaturgos. G. Thaumaturgus. I wonder who that is. It is the man, Isaiah. Nice work, Isaiah. Keep at it, Kavan. Keep at it.
No, that's all right. My name is accurate now.
Alrighty, well, what is there left to do?
Wednesday we're doing the Empire Conquered video.
Very nice. We'll do a good quiz on that documentary. And I did upload it for you guys. It blocked it when we reacted to it. But I re-uploaded to Rumble. Alright, guys. Farewell. God be with you all. I guess I will see you later. See ya.
God bless you.
Love you
God
guys.
bless.